Bonjour, mes amis. Welcome, everyone, to the First Unitarian congregation of Ottawa. Whether you are here in Worship Hall or watching from wherever you may be, whenever you may be watching, you are welcome. I'm the Reverend Eric Meter, that's my first name, this congregation's lead minister.
Good morning, and I'm Lee, your worship associate. We acknowledge that our FirstU campus is located on traditional, unsurrendered, and unceded Algonquin Anishinaabe territory, and that the work of reconciliation is a responsibility of our congregation and of all Canadians. Our goal is to educate ourselves and all those that have the willingness to understand, to be of service to those who are at risk, and to advocate for justice.
This morning, we will focus on how we choose to be in relationship with one another. Just a little thing, I know. Let's begin now by joining our voices in song. Please rise in body or spirit as we sing together, "Let This Be a House of Peace." You just heard it, so it will be the same tune. You'll find it as number 1054 in your teal hymnal. The lyrics will also be on the screen above.
Sorry.
Thank you, singers. Thank you. We light our chalice this morning to these words by Gretchen Haley. Every little thing that breaks your heart is welcome here. We'll make a space for it, give it its due time and praise for the wanting it represents, the longing for something more, some healing hope that remains not yet. We promise no magic, no making it all better, but offer only this circle of trust, this human community that remembers, though imperfectly, that sings and prays, though sometimes awkwardly, this gathering that loves, though not yet enough. We're still practicing, after all, still learning, still in need of help and partners, still becoming able to receive all this beauty and all these gifts we each bring. Come, let us worship together. Now, I've got a story, and I'm going to see if I can Are we working here? I'm going to come over and sit on this thing that really has no use but holding flowers, which we don't have today, and hiding a bunch of strings, i.e. audio wires. Do we have the story slides? Now, we may need to do some education after the story on what a Buddhist monk is and what they're all about. Just saying. This is The Angry Monk and the Fly, words and art by Tina Schneider. The monk sat in a field of morning glories. The flowers turned to face him as if he were the sun itself. He sat as still as a tree stump from morning until night, and the wild animals weren't afraid of him. The animals curled up and slept at his feet. All of their hearts were one with the heart of the monk, all except one, the fly. This fly had no respect for the monk. He buzzed around his head like a tangle of yarn. The monk tried to be still. He tried to be peaceful, but inside his mind, his anger rose like a flood until he couldn't take it anymore and shouted, "Go away!" Like that. The animals were startled from their peace. They ran back to furrow and den. Even the morning glories turned away. You know it's bad when the flowers move away from you. The monk was determined to do better next time. The next day he woke up before the sun. He stepped gently between the sleeping flowers, careful not to harm even a single blade of grass. He found a little clearing and took his seat. He opened his hands like blossoms on his knees, and I'd do that if I didn't have these to carry. Closed his eyes and began to meditate. Behind his closed eyes, he saw his anger, still there, smoldering like a little red-hot ember. He tried not to pay attention to it. Instead, he focused on his breath like a good monk. Slowly, his anger began to cool and drift out of sight like a pebble sinking below the surface of a lake. Peace began to rise in him. The wild animals flocked back around the monk, Peace spread throughout the land. Chaos calmed into quiet. Hey there. Birds of every color circled the monk like a garland of flowers. Noises everywhere were hushed. Well, you know it, all noises except one. The fly zigged and zagged onto the scene as noisy as a flying motorcycle. The monk's anger awakened like fire. He cupped his hands together, trying to squash that blasted fly, and yelled once again, "Go away!" The quiet shattered like lightning. All the birds burst back up into the trees. All the animals fled. Even the flowers closed up once again in fear. The monk wilted in despair. Every day was the same. The monk sat, the animals gathered, peace rolled in like a white fog, and then the fly showed up like a splat of black ink, staining the quiet and sending the poor monk into a tizzy of frustration, until one day the monk returned to the meadow. He sat down to meditate. The animals gathered around. Peace began to grow inside him and all around him, and just like clockwork, the fly showed up. But this time, the fly didn't fly around the monk's head. This time, the fly landed right on the monk's nose. The monk crossed his eyes with anger when he saw the fly sitting on his nose. His anger boiled up once again, and he shouted, "Go away!" And all the animals went far, far away. And the monk was left alone, except for the fly. The fly just stayed there, sitting on the monk's nose. The monk was tired, too tired to be angry. And the first time he just looked at the fly. And what he saw surprised him. He saw 1,000 eyes looking back at him, and within each eye he saw himself. And within each reflection of himself, he saw the fly. He saw Buddha fly. And for a moment, his world dissolved around him. He was the fly, and the fly was him. They were one, they were the same, and there was no more anger, only love. He saw the fly. He really saw him, and the fly was beautiful. The fly was Buddha fly, and the monk's anger no longer had a home. Thank you for that story. Thank you for being good living animals, playing with good living. Ooh, that's not playing nice with that animal, but it's a dinosaur. Maybe that's okay. Let us sing our young ones out to the rest of their great and important activities this morning. Please. If we can make an arc, they will go out this, and even from this side, you can help make an arc by doing like that. Thank you all.
And now we turn to how we are together. As health challenges continue, do take care and take advantage of online opportunities at FirstU to stay in touch. If you are new to FirstU and would like to learn more about us, please contact us through our email at welcome@firstunitarianottawa.ca. And if you're right here in Worship Hall with us this morning and would like more information about FirstU, it's available at the welcome table at the back of the pews. Now here's Brent from our board to highlight some announcements for today.
Good morning. My name is Brent Nicole. I'm the president of the board. I'm pleased to be with you today. This mask is a reminder, actually, that COVID is still among us. 2 people today actually said that they're just recovering from COVID. Let's all try and stay safe as best we can. Remember a few weeks ago we had a fall congregational meeting and there was some unfinished business there. Well, there's a special congregational meeting scheduled for next Sunday after service. The main purpose of this meeting is to approve a resolution updating our charitable purposes. The meeting will begin at noon here in Worship Hall. Voting registration will be available immediately before and after the service. Meeting materials and the link to observe the meeting online can be found on the member page of the FirstU website. If you have questions, there will be 2 informational sessions to discuss this resolution being considered. The first one will be in person here in Worship Hall after service today at noon. If Worship Hall is too agoraphobic, we may retreat to the lounge through this door. The other session will be on Zoom on Wednesday afternoon at 5 o'clock. There is currently an error in the EUU. Please see the member page. Sorry, there's an error about that Zoom link in the EUU. Please see the member page, or you can email me, president at firstunitarianottawa.ca, for the correct Zoom link for Wednesday afternoon's information session. FirstU's 3 choirs, so that's all for in aid of a special meeting next Sunday, December 3rd, noon, here in Worship Hall. Also, Sunday, December 3rd, FirstU's 3 choirs will be presenting their winter choir concert next Sunday, December 3rd, in the evening at 7:30. Each choir will be performing music connected to their names. Chalice Choir will sing songs of hope and light. 3 Rivers Choir will perform music about water, and Fusion Choir will perform selections from a mix of genres and times. Admission is by donation, and there will be a cake reception following the concert. And now, here is Phil with a follow-up announcement, or something. Phil and friends.
While the pledge team players are assembling, carefully rehearsed. Good morning. We're from the pledge team, and we're here to thank those who've already made their pledge, and to talk to all those who have been thinking about making a pledge, especially those who said that they would pledge soon or right after the fall fair.
We want the campaign to roll along, so we got some help.
What have you got there, Chuck? Something to help things roll along?
Yeah, well, what I've got is a square to it. This will help us roll along.
Does it roll well?
No, it's a bit bumpy.
Well, I've got an improvement. I've got a triangular to it.
That's not an improvement. Why is that an improvement?
It's one less bump. Things will really roll with a triangular to it.
Well, you guys, listen, I got a better one. This is round.
That's it.
It's a round
To it. And it's not a hollow to it. It is a round to it. And we all each have a round to it. So there we go. And
That's what you need to keep this pledge campaign rolling.
you need to get around to it. You see, we have one.
Chuck, read your script.
And thanks for all those who've already gotten their round to it.
Pledge forms are everywhere, in the pews, at the back, or online.
So
Pledge
as if your congregation depends on it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. That answers the question. What the heck was a square to it in the EUU? I'll point out actually that there is a little QR code in your order of service that you can direct your smartphone to. Don't do it now, you're in church. But if you need help directing your smartphone to use a QR code to look at the EUU, it's a handy thing to have. We encourage you to receive the EUU, our weekly email newsletter. Check our Facebook and Instagram pages and our website for notices and updates. Our calendar continues to be as full as ever, though some of our activities take place online. This morning, each of us is welcome. We, of any heritage or faith, whatever our burdens, of any culture or race, of any gender or orientation, in any body, all that we are. Today, we are all part of this spiritual community.
Phil, when you said that you had a real round to it, I should have known there was more to it than that. Pun intended, sorry. Each week, we pause in our time together in recognition of both the joy and the sorrows in our lives and across the globe. We honor our celebrations and challenges both by placing stones in a bowl of water. As the ripples extend outward, we can imagine them continuing out beyond these small bowls, out through and past our pews, out into the larger community of all. A stone of both cautious optimism and some relief that the ceasefire in Gaza seems to be holding, and that some of the hostages are being released. And a stone for our friends at Or Hanashama, the Jewish Reconstructionist community that meets in our space, who are celebrating their 36th anniversary as a faith community here in Ottawa this weekend. 36 is a magical number in the Jewish tradition because it is a multiple of 18, which corresponds to the Hebrew word for life, kai. And 2 stones for losses we have experienced this week. A stone for Barbara Dara Lee. A celebration of her life will take place on Monday morning, December 4th, with Alex officiating. And I'm also sad to announce that Mary Duncan died on Wednesday night. She was in the hospital for pneumonia, and by all accounts, she was ready to go. Please come forward now to drop any stones of a joy or sorrow or challenge. Let us share what we are living with together. carrying cards for Barbara and Mary's families, as well as a more detailed card for Crystal and Michael on the birth of their baby girl, Riley, as mentioned briefly last week, are at the back of the hall for us to sign. Even if you don't know them, this is a way for us to extend our care on behalf of those who have given so much to this community. I invite you now, each of you, into a time of stillness and reflection. After several moments, Jen will bring us back together with a gift of music.
Today's reading is from Lisa Ward. A covenant is not a definition of a relationship. It is the framework for our relating. A covenant leaves room for chance and change. It is humble towards evolution. It claims, I will abide with you in this common endeavor, be present as best I can in our becoming. This calls for a level of trust, courage, and sacrifice that needs to be nurtured, renewed, and affirmed on a regular basis. A creed creates a static truth, something that does not incorporate new insights and realities. A covenant is a dance of co-creation, keeping in step with one another in the flow of our lives. A creed seeks uniformity and a unison voice. A covenant seeks harmony and a shared voice. Sometimes we may arrive at unison, but it is not required. A creed gives authority to the statement. A covenant gives authority to shared intention. A creed creates an us and them. A covenant invites relationship. A creed is a prescription that must be relied on. A covenant relies on the treasures of shared truth. The overall trust with this covenant is in the truth, capital T, something which no one person can fully see, yet which each and every person can come to know in glimpses, in another story, in epiphanies. Truth is ever-changing in our seeking to understand because of our limited perspectives. We grow into a deeper sense of the meaning of all things when we take our journeys seriously, with full heart and mind. The courage within this covenant is in the acceptance and celebration of life, with all of its challenges, pain, ironies, and joys. And the sacrifice within this covenant is in the letting go of dogma, of assumptions, of control, and giving over to a greater wisdom which comes to us in bits and pieces. The task of this covenant is to take responsibility for the freedom we espouse. We know that we are interconnected and that what we do creates ripples of hope or despair, of affirmation or negation. What we do with and for one another is powerful and beyond our imagining.
While fusion gets into place today, I want to tell you a little bit about the anthem you're going to hear, as it's quite unusual. The bulletin says that it's by Norwegian composer Knut Nystedt. However, it really has two composers. It's also by Bach. It's a setting of a funeral chorale in German. The translation is "Come, sweet death, come, blessed rest, come lead me in peace." What you're going to hear today is first the choir singing the chorale together as written by Bach in harmony. And then the second time through, they've been divided into little mini choirs, 3 of them at the back, as you'll see. And each of these choirs is going to complete the chorale, or each phrase of the piece of the chorale, at a different time. And this is on purpose. So it will sound, this is why I'm explaining it first, so you don't think they're doing it wrong. They'll come apart. It'll sound like the group is kind of coming apart at the seams, and then they should come back together at the end of each phrase in this beautiful, rich, balanced chord. And this really interesting and lovely treatment to me symbolizes the tension, discordance, conflict, and then resolution and coming together and release. So it's a really fascinating and beautiful treatment of the idea of the chaos of life and then the resolution at the end. So we hope you will enjoy it.
Jen, choir, thank you. We originally set that piece for today when the topic was going to be different than it is. It still works perfectly. Thank you. Yes, thumbs up, Jen. Thumbs up. Well done. Recently, I realized something I had known, but in an entirely new way. Has that ever happened to you? Like when you're looking at a favorite sculpture and the light hits it and you realize there's a whole nother dynamic to it. Or when you're driving home and you watch another driver drive in a way that you realize that's why in driver's ed they told us never to change lanes in the middle of an intersection. That sort of thing. And what I realized is something that all of us of any age know, but I was able to see it more clearly somehow. What I realized is that we're all free. Free to do what we wish in any and every moment. We're free. And what we choose to do follows certain patterns. Does this make any sense to you? Maybe, maybe not. The laws we live, quote unquote, under, the rules of the road, our partnership vows, only have the substance we give them. If I were to say to you, donning all of my ministerial authority and more, a significant amount more, that you are utterly free to do anything you want to do. You're free to do anything you want to do. I expect, hallelujah, all right. I expected a couple of you to go out the doors to find something better to do. Thank you for not, that helps. We do what we choose to do because through any number of ways we have learned that actions have consequences. And in society, while it's not talked about generally enough, though it is talked about here in Canada more than most places, we live amid a balance between rights and responsibilities. That's what the so-called Freedom Convoy may not really understand, or at least pretends not to understand. And now I'm going to go off script because this doesn't make sense. I think it was Ralph Waldo Emerson, and you're going to ask which of his essays this was in, and I'm not going to be able to tell you. It may have been in his essay on character. There's a little line that says, "May your goodness have an edge to it. May your goodness have an edge to it." A couple people with seminary educations are nodding. I like that. There are times for ideals, and there are times to realize we live in what we call the real world. And so we make promises to each other. Wedding vows is probably the primary example of that. I remember how struck I was the first time I noticed when visiting a Jewish couple friend of mine that their wedding vows, their contract, was calligraphied in artwork on their dining room wall. What a wonderful thing. What a brave thing. Here, and as Lee outlined earlier, we talk about ours being a covenantal faith. We're not a creedal faith. We've never been about set beliefs. What we're about is how we promise to behave with and to one another. It can sound a little abstract, I admit. We, the member congregations of the Unitarian Universalist Association, do promote and I'm getting our buying lines here. This is not good. What's that? Read it. They're from the hymnal, the first line, the first page before the first line. It's not the most important thing, but let's get this right. The page turn before the first hymn. Do promote and affirm. To affirm and promote. Okay. And where does the word covenant come in, Nancy? Margaret?
Okay. We, the member congregations of the Unitarian Universalist Association, covenant to affirm.
Okay. We covenant to affirm and promote. Forgive me there. I'm going to lose a bit of my license on that one. The word covenant is not a word we use very often in everyday speech. All right? Let's just admit that. It is true. But here we come together. We don't have a set of beliefs that hold us together. What we have are principles, and we approach them in covenant with one another. Now, we've got more people looking up the words to see if we got it right. That's fine. I've been meeting more often with the leadership of our Ajaski program. And in the indigenous tradition of which that springs, they have created friendly agreements with quite a few groups that they work with in town. We have covenants. I care much less about what specific words we use than the spirit of the agreements we forge and the promises we make one another. And here I'm going to twist a little bit and ask a question. You can just raise your hands. How many people here would consider yourself a ballroom dancer? There's a point to this. We'll get to it. How many of you, oh, you're an educated crew. This is great. We haven't, I missed that. Hearing aids aren't perfect. All right. I learned something about dancing and life from my younger brother, Glenn. Now, if you remember him, he was here for our installation just over a year ago. If there was the guy with the long beard that looked like a ZZ Top understudy, that was my brother Glenn. That's his COVID beard. But before he grew the beard, my brother, and still is, even with the beard, he's a tango dancer. He's been to Buenos Aires twice. I hate envying my younger brother, but I do. I had one lesson with him, and he said, that was enough, Eric. But what I learned was, in dancing, it's important and actually necessary to have what he called a firm frame with your dancing partner. Now, I checked with him about this last week, and he said, yep, firm frame, that's a fair phrase. What you don't want are noodle arms or a death grip. No noodle arms, no wishy-washiness, and no death grip. Well, there are a lot of people outside these walls who see Unitarian Universalists, this faith tradition, as people who can believe in anything. They see us as a noodle arm faith. It's true, but that's not who we are. During slavery in the States, is a minister had a revolver in the pulpit just in case, because he was working on getting folks to freedom to hear. Kept a revolver right down here where we keep matches and extra hymnals. We do our best. We are at our best when we give ourselves and each other a firm frame, otherwise known, at least as we call it, as a covenant. The Jewish theologian and philosopher Martin Buber described humanity as being promise-making, promise-breaking, promise-restoring people. Now, I know we make promises. I know we break promises. But we're at our best when we renew those promises to one another once they've been broken or forgotten about. I'm moving ahead because time is short. Friendly agreements, covenants, firm frames, they're what we need to bring to the table. They're the gift we need to give each other and ourselves. I'll close by returning to the words of Lisa Ward that Lee shared earlier. The task of this covenant, by which I mean the work of our faith community, is to take responsibility for the freedom we espouse. We know that we are interconnected and that what we do creates ripples, you saw it earlier, of hope or despair, affirmation or negation. What we do with and for one another is powerful and beyond our imagining, because you don't always know where the ripples will reach. We don't always know what the ends of what we do will be. But the future is bright when we take our promises seriously. Thank you, one. Thank you all. So may it be. Amen.
I invite the ushers to start passing the baskets at this time. Make sure you don't have your noodle arms, please. This congregation has a long history of care, vitality, and bringing people together to move the arc of justice forward. We've been able to live into our hopes and dreams because of the generosity of those within and beyond this community. So whether you're here in Worship Hall or anywhere else, you are a part of this community. To make a gift in support of the works of this congregation, you don't need to use the baskets that are now beginning to make their way among the pews. Wherever you are invited to go to our website or contact our finance manager to find out how to make a donation or keep up with your pledge. Our gifts are freely given and gratefully received. We dedicate these gifts to the work of this community of faith, serving human wholeness, caring for the planet, upholding religious freedom, welcoming the stranger, loving one another. And now let us sing together once more. Please rise and body your spirit as we sing We Laugh, We Cry, verses 1 and 4, found as number 354 in our gray hymnals. The words will also be on the screen above.
Please be seated. Before we begin to close this time of worship and reflection, a reminder that coffee hour will begin out in Fellowship Hall immediately after the service. If you're new here, still feel new, or simply welcome a deeper conversation today, please pick up a blue mug as you enter Fellowship Hall. I even wrote green in green. For years, I served a congregation that had blue mugs. I need to excise that memory. I apologize. This is the color green. 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 As always, leafy greens, courtesy of the good folks of Achaski. Are they back? Are the grow towers back? I was hoping. Skip that. Okay. Back on track. Now, as we prepare to extinguish our chalice, may these words from John O'Donohue be our guide. May the frames of your belonging be generous enough for your dreams. May you know the eternal longing that lives at the heart of time. May you never place walls between the light and yourself. May you allow the wild beauty of the invisible world to gather you, mind you, and embrace you in belonging. This morning's chalice is extinguished, yet the spark of our connections and faith remain. And now let's sing final time this morning, Spirit of Life, first in English and then in French. Join me, reach out our hands to those beyond us as we return, my friends, to to the challenge, the joyful, loving challenge of helping the world come even a bit more alive in love. Let us go in peace together. Go in peace.